Go ahead.
Okay, so you were talking about time slots. I know that I have a pretty busy work schedule. What if we get slotted for a time that someone's at work? What can we do?
Well, my problem is I don't know, because I really don't like giving the test outside the time slot.
I mean,
I know. We'll figure it out.
okay.
Um,
I mean, I was gonna say, do we know when we're going to know the time slots? Because I can potentially ask for time off, but I'd rather not do that.
I understand that. I will let you know as soon as I know. There has been a lot of personnel changes in the registrar's office. In fact, at one point they were down to 2 people. So things are taking a little bit longer, and the person that did this final schedule has gone. So things are a little late. She was working on it last week because asking for some people do combined sections. So once she has those slated, we should have something. So if our class is at 9 o'clock, I'm gonna say most likely it will end up being Wednesday morning at 7:30. But don't quote me on that.
Okay, I mean,
Just based on the way that the schedules run in the past. So.
okay.
All right.
Thank you.
So the final is what's listed as the cash budget test, part 1 and part 2?
Correct.
Okay, so that's why you have that listed as the Wednesday, May 12th from 7 to 9:30 is your
Did I actually put that on there? I was guessing.
That's how it's listed, yeah. So that's why I wanted to check, because I too, not necessarily for work, but for kids and stuff, trying to coordinate schedules and things. So
So that was my guess. We'll see if
Okay.
that's what actually happened. Does that work,
Okay.
John, or no?
I'm sorry. I have pretty bad internet up here. Could you repeat that, please? You were cutting out a bit.
I said I think my best guess is 7:30 on Wednesday morning.
Yeah, that would work. I mean, if it's morning time, I can make it. I work.
Ours is going to be morning time, just because our class is 9 o'clock. So.
Okay, so yeah, that should work as long as it's not past like 10 in the morning, because I work, what is it, like 1 to 10 p.m. Tuesday through Saturday.
Okay. Well, we'll figure that out. So.
Thank you.
All right. So.
Can I just ask one other question regarding grades and stuff? Because when we first started, you talked about how, and the syllabus mentions how it's a points-based class, and it was based upon 750 points.
Mm-hmm.
But according to the grading, how it lists out on Vanco, it would be more than 750 possible points.
Right, because I throw in a few extra.
Okay. Because nothing's been flagged as extra, so I just was checking that the basis of the grading is still out of 750.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's extra points built in your project, and I think there's extra points built in the homework.
Okay.
And actually, I don't remember if I did in the quiz or not. So yeah, I build in a few extra points, so you get all that you do.
Okay.
So.
Thank you for clarifying.
Mm-hmm. All right, so here we go. So this is chapter 13. Now, in order to do this, you have to, on Vanco Hall, print off a present value chart. Let me just see if I can get that open. And I know you can't see what I'm doing, so hang on. Oh, go away. Um, okay, so let me do this. Do this, Liana, in answer to your question, it's not a final, it's your last test, but it's during finals week. Okay, so this is on Vanco Hall under chapter 13. You need to print off this present value chart. The one in your book doesn't go high enough. The one in your book only goes 35%. You need the 50%, which is on this. So the only one you really need is the lump chart. Okay, you can use the lump chart for everything that you're going to do. So my advice, instead of confusing yourself, just print this one off. And you're going to need that for what we're going to do. All right. So let me get back out. Go back in and I'll start all over again. All right, so what we're doing with capital budgeting is a company is looking at some different projects to do. So for example, maybe they want to expand and add a restaurant. Or maybe what they want to do is actually add some more rooms. And so they only have a certain amount of money. And so they have to decide which project is going to bring them back the best return. And so we're going to look at these 5 different ways to assess those capital projects. Some of them are very, very simple. Some of them are a little bit more complicated. And so I'm going to go through each of them. I'm going to use this little example that I have right here. This is not in your book, so it's just an example to show you how to do all the different methods. We have 2 projects. This is project A, and this is project B. And so what you have, this is the cost. Both projects cost $5,000. This is the cash flows that they predict are going to come in for the next 4 years on this project. And you can see, looking at this project, they're very different. This one gets all their most of their money up front. This one is building as it goes. So I'm going to go through each of these, and I'm going to do A, and then we'll go back and we'll do B. So payback method. So with a payback method, it's simply adding numbers. And so what you want to do is add down this column of numbers until you hit that $5,000. So let's see, we got 2,500. So at the end of year 3, I have 4,500 just by adding those numbers. So I know that I need 3 full years. And if I have 4,500, I need 500 more out of the next year. So I need 500 out of the 4,000 that I'm going to bring in year 4. And so that is your payback period. Now Excel puts it to a decimal or reduces my fraction. But if you look up here, it also puts it as a decimal, and you can do it either way. So this project would take 3 full years and this much or this much of that 4th year to be paid back. Again, if you have questions, ask. Okay, I'll just keep going. So the next one we're going to do is called the net present value. Now, the bad thing about the payback method is it just looks at the numbers and it doesn't take into account the time value of money. $4,000 4 years from now is not worth $4,000 today. You can put money into an account that's going to earn interest. And so you put less money in today to end up with that $4,000. So the net present value says, all right, let's look at these numbers so that we can compare everything to what it looks like today. I know I have to pay out $5,000 today. What is the value of these inflows in today's dollars? And this is where the charts come in. And so you're going to go to the present value chart. It's going to tell you in the problem what your interest, your cost of capital is. You go to the 12% column and you just start copying down the numbers off of that chart. And these are coming right off of the 12% column. On the, what I call the lump chart. So this is bringing those numbers back to what they're worth today. Now you'll see this big thing over here in red. If you are proficient at all in Excel, you know that you can do some of these formulas in Excel. They are not acceptable because on the test, you're not going to be able to use Excel, and everybody doesn't know how to use Excel. So we're keeping this at fair game. You get different numbers if you use the Excel. And so the only acceptable answer is going to be the ones using my formulas. And that goes for several of these. So the next step is to just multiply this times this to find out what their value is. And then all I'm going to do is add them up. So this is the present value of those future inflows at 12%. Okay? Questions? So this is where you're using the chart, and this one you're just multiplying across. To find the net present value, you're now going to subtract off the cost to get the net present value. So that's the net present value of this project. So if you're looking at projects, this is a positive number. That's a project you'd want to consider, because the present value of those inflows, what they're worth today, is more than the cost that you're paying out today. So in today's dollars, that's a project you would look at. And that's your net present value. Questions? Okay. Taylor, do you have a question or you're good?
No, I'm good. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. Okay. So the profitability index uses those same two numbers. It takes your present value and it divides by cost. And in this case, it's the present value at 12%. So it's the present value, whatever percent you put in there. So this would be this. Try again. This would be this. And you're just going to divide. And it should make sense to you. If this is positive, this better be over 1. If it's not, you've done something wrong. So profitability index uses the information from the net present value method and looks at, compares the present value that you found to the cost. And if this is over 1, that again is a project you'd want to look at. But these two, again, make sure your answers make sense. If this is a positive number, this answer better be over 1. Questions on that? Okay, then we're going to go to the accounting rate of return. And so it takes the average cash flows. So what I'm going to do is take these 4 numbers coming in and find their average. So I'm going to take the average. Go away. Okay, so that's my average cash flows. And then your bottom number is your average cost. And I stuck a little note right here, or average investment, sorry. And I stuck a little note here that your average investment is the cost plus any salvage value divided by 2. We have no salvage value. They would have to tell you in the problem if you had a salvage value. So it's going to be this cost plus 0 divided by 2. And then all you're going to do is just divide them. So that's a pretty high percentage. Okay, pretty high percentage. Again, that's not doing anything with the time value of money. It's a easy way, along with the payback method, to do some quick eliminations of things. So you can, using the payback and these, which are fairly simple to do, eliminate some projects that aren't necessarily good ones to do. All right, and this last one is probably the hardest one. And that's called the internal rate of return. And this is the formula right here. Okay, this is the formula right here. And it really isn't as bad as it looks. So the first thing you have to do is, because this is positive, I know my project's earning at least 12%. But I want to figure out exactly what percent it's earning. And so in order to do this manually, we have to do it using this formula right here. And this is why you need the chart that's in the book, or not in the book. So I'm going to move this over a little bit. So we have the present value at 12%. To do the internal rate of return, what you're going to do is you're going to use the same numbers. Actually, hold on, I don't need that. But now you're going to go to the 50% column. Automatically go to the 50% column. And we're going to look up the same down the rows. You're going to learn these numbers because you're going to use them all the time. So those are the numbers from the 50% column. We're going to do the same thing, just going to multiply. And then again, add them up. Okay, so you can see that this comes in under the cost of the project. The cost of the project was $5,000. So the interest rate that this project is earning is somewhere between 12 and 50%. And so what the internal rate of return does is it figures out exactly what that percentage is. We're going to use these numbers and this number, and we only have to do one other calculation before we can use the formula. We have to find the difference in present value. And so we're going to take, and be careful, we want present value. So we're going to take the 60, 56, 50. And we're going to subtract the 2717. And that's our difference. And now we can go to the formula. So we're going to go down here. So, hold on. So we're going to start with the low interest rate, which was 12. And we're going to add to that. In our parentheses, you're going to put the, what happened to my, oh, net present value. You're going to put what we just found, which was the difference in present values. And then you're going to multiply that by the difference in your interest rates. And in this case, it would be 50 minus 12. So this is going to change. This is going to change depending on which interest rates you did everything with, but the 50 won't change. So I'm going to divide these two. And then I'm going to multiply that times 38, which is the difference there. So I'm going to take this times this. And then I'm going to add those two together. And so that is the interest rate that the project is earning. And then sometimes what happens here is a company will say, okay, I'm not going to do any project that doesn't earn 30%. So even though this project came in really well at a lot of things, if it doesn't meet their standard, they don't do it. I say that one's probably the hardest, and it's just because it has multiple steps. That's chapter 13. Questions? No questions.
So you said that we won't be able to use Excel and that we have to use your formula specifically?
For the net present value and the internal rate of return, yes.
Okay.
They'll actually come out different a
Okay.
little bit. All right, so let's look at project B. We're going to do the exact same stuff. So we're going to do net present value first. So I can basically copy all of this. Let me just make sure my formulas are right. Okay. So you're doing the same exact thing, 12%. I mean, you can use it to do the calculations like I'm doing, but to use the actual internal rate of return formula and net present value. Net present value comes out really, really close, but it's not the same. Internal rate of return does not for some reason. Okay, so there's our net present value. Profitability index. Would be the same two numbers. It would be present value at 12% divided by the cost. Okay, so net present value, internal or profitability index, not huge differences. Okay, not huge differences, less than $100 there. This is pretty close. So let's go look at payback. Now here's where you're going to see a big difference. And this is because this one gets most of its money right off the top. So after the first year, they only need $500. So it's one full year and they only need 500 out of the next year. So that comes out to 1 1/3. So that one is obviously going to be paid back 2 years earlier. But as you can see, what comes in is going down. And again, this is only looking at 4 years out. With this one increasing like it does, depending on what the thing is that they're doing, they could be getting more potential here. All right, let's go see what this one does. So we're gonna take the average of those four. That didn't work. Okay, so now we're seeing a little bit of difference here. So this was higher here, better here, but lower here. So let's go see what happens with our internal rate of return. Just copy that. Okay, so what we need here, put in our right numbers. Oh, wait a minute, we gotta go do the 50%. Okay, so let's copy these. Copy these. And then multiply. And add them up. Okay. So again, you can see a big difference here, and that's because so much of their money is coming in that first year. Makes a big difference. So down here, we've got to take the 62,400 minus 4062.5. And then here. Okay, so again, it's going to be at present value divided by that. Okay, so pick that up. That divided by that is equal to that. That times 38 is equal to that. Add that to our 12. And this is what we get. So now let's look at these two projects. The ones that are the most important, because it takes into time value or money, net present value, and your internal rate of return. In this case, they're both telling us the same thing. Project B is better than project A. A little more present value, net present value, definitely a higher probability index. The only thing that it comes in short on is the accounting rate of return. These two also tell us the same thing. Internal rate of return, this one is earning a better return. Now, in some cases, you may get a difference here between the net present value and the internal rate of return when you're comparing projects. And usually the recommendation is that you go with the net present value. If this was telling you two different things, so this was telling us internal rate of return go B, and let's say that it was telling us net present value go A. You would go by the net present value because the chances are you bringing in this is a lot bigger chance than you earning 34% on a project. Okay, most of the time, especially for what we're going to do, they're going to come in, they're going to tell you the same thing. But if they don't, the net present value is what you go with. All right, questions?
For the accounting rate of return, the
Yes.
average investment number, how did we calculate that?
So that's always, let me move over here. Cost plus salvage value divided by 2. And I don't know that you're ever going to see a salvage value. So just put a 0 in there. So it's basically the 5,000 divided by 2.
Thank you.
Yes. Anybody, anything else? Okay, then I'm going to stop my share. All right, any questions? Okay, here's what I want you to do for Wednesday. So it's problem number 9, and I have no idea what page it's on. It's on my book. But I want you to follow my instructions, which are all those methods use 10% in the charts. Okay, you're going to do all 5 methods regardless of what it tells you to do. And you're going to use, oh, wait a minute. That one is not a good one. Hold on, I got to give you a different one because that one doesn't come in correctly. Okay, then you're going to do this one instead. Number 11, there's 2 projects, alpha and beta. So do both projects. They have different costs. They have different lifespans. Alpha only has 3 years, beta has 6. And do all the methods for both projects. Okay, that's number 11. Questions? And you're using, I think the problem tells you, again, let me just check. Uh, 10%. Okay, 10%. So there's also information in there about replacing the shorter span equipment. Just ignore that. Just take the amounts coming in and their cost and 10% and calculate all the numbers. All right. So I will see you on Wednesday.
I'm sorry, which part should we ignore?
There's something in there. It was talking about the shorter life could be replaced with another one at the end of the short life. Don't even pay attention to that.
Okay.
Just pick up the numbers. Cost.
I'm sorry. What page was that?
663.
I just closed my book.
Thank you.
Oh, is it 663? So it's 663. So all you need from that problem is the cost of 10,000 and 18,000, the inflows of $8,000, one for 3 years, one for 6, and a 10% cost. That's all you need. Ignore the rest. Okay?
Okay, thank you so much.
All right. See you guys on Wednesday.
Thank you.
Yep.